The text message was still open on his phone when I picked it up to silence an alarm he'd left blaring on the nightstand. Can't wait to see you Friday. I
I
haven't
know
felt this
what
happy
you
in years.
did.
3 little dots. Then another message. You make me feel like I matter. I stood there in my own bedroom, in the house we'd bought together 12 years ago, and I felt something inside me go very, very still. Because I knew that feeling he was describing. I'd asked him for that feeling. I'd begged him for that feeling. And he told me I was too needy. For the first 3 years of our marriage, I don't think I noticed anything was wrong. We were busy. We were building something. I told myself that's just what marriage looks like when you're grinding through your 30s. The dishes, the bills, the calendars synced to keep everyone where they needed to be. But somewhere around year 5, I started to feel like I was living with a roommate who happened to share my last name. He'd come home and go straight to his phone. Dinner happened in near silence. I'd ask about his day and get one-word answers. I'd try to talk about US, about where we were headed, about how disconnected I felt, and he'd sigh like I'd just assigned him homework. Can we not do this right now? That became his favorite sentence, not a question, a closed door. So I learned to shrink. I learned to ask for less. I told myself maybe I was too much, too sensitive, too needy, too hungry for something he simply didn't have in him to give. I tried therapy. He came twice and said it felt like a waste of money. I tried date nights. He'd check his phone under the table. I tried writing him a letter once, actual pen and paper, laying out exactly how lonely I was inside my own marriage. He read it, set it down, said, I don't know why you can't just be happy. I provide. I'm here. What more do you want from me? What more did I want? I wanted him. That was it. That was always it. And every time he dismissed me, I believed him a little more. I believed I was the problem, the needy one, the one asking for too much from a man who simply didn't have more to give. I stayed faithful through every one of those years, not because I didn't notice other men looking, not because I didn't feel invisible enough to want someone, anyone, to make me feel seen. I stayed faithful because I respected the vow, even when he'd stopped respecting me with anything close to effort. So when I read those texts on his phone, my first feeling wasn't even rage, it was confusion. Genuine, bone-deep confusion. Because the man who wrote, You make me feel like I matter, was not the man I'd been married to for over a decade. That man didn't exist in our house. I had never met him. I went through the phone. I'm not going to pretend I felt guilty about it. Not after what I found. 3 years. 3 years of a woman named, it doesn't matter what her name was. What mattered was what he wrote to her. Good morning texts. Actual good morning texts. Every single day, asking how she slept. Photos of flowers he'd brought her. Flowers. This man hadn't bought me a card since our wedding. Voice memos where he told her he loved hearing her voice before bed. He took her to dinner. He listened. God, the conversations were so long, so detailed, so present. He remembered things she'd told him weeks earlier. He asked follow-up questions. He showed up. This was the same man who told me in our own bedroom that real conversation felt like too much work after a long day. So it turned out he wasn't incapable of intimacy. He wasn't allergic to effort. He wasn't some emotionally stunted man who simply lacked the tools. He had all of it, every bit of it: attention, affection, patience, curiosity, tenderness. He just didn't choose to give any of it to me. That's the part that still takes my breath away when I sit with it. It wasn't that he had nothing left after work, after bills, after life. It was that he looked at what I was asking for: connection, presence, to be seen, and decided I wasn't worth the energy it would take. But she was. I filed for divorce 6 weeks later. He cried. Actually cried, and asked how I could throw away 12 years over one mistake. One mistake doesn't write good morning texts for 3 years. One mistake doesn't remember her sister's birthday. One mistake doesn't choose every single day to give a stranger what he refused his own wife. I'm not the same woman who shrank herself down for a decade, trying to be small enough not to bother him. I don't carry the guilt anymore. The one that used to whisper, maybe I really was too much. I wasn't too much. I was simply asking the wrong man for what I deserved. He had the capacity all along. He just never chose me with it. And now, neither do I.